Okay, this is going to be about global warming inaccuracies. There's a man on the internet that did a video, and in his video, he uses the apparent size of the sun as a basketball, and the apparent size of the Earth as a sesame seed, and he counts off. It's about 25 meters at that scale from the basketball to the sesame seed. I decided to do something a little different. We're at a baseball diamond here. There's a Batman, and there's Mr. Spock. They're helping me here, and my Mr. Spock's the science officer for this. I'm going to use that Polska Kielbasa sign right there. That's going to be the sun, and this Kaiser Wilhelm II coin is going to be the Earth. Now I'm right here on the baseline of this baseball diamond. That's a sign in the outfield. At this scale, right on the baseline, that's the sun to the Earth. The sun, and you can do this with anything you want, the sun is approximately 109 times the diameter of the Earth, and then you just count out the scale. So pick whatever you want for your own thing, just so you'll know. And I'm also going to use the baseball diamond to talk about the Earth's atmosphere later on. So that way you can always remember what I'm talking about. Throw in the Kaiser Wilhelm coin and the baseball diamond. Anyway, I've asked this to probably 500 people, and I've only gotten 2 people close. Of course, to get it exactly right, you would actually have to know the correct answer from studying. But how much of the total output energy of the Earth, the sun, does the Earth get? And I've gotten 6%, 14%. Well, the real answer is 1,000th of 1%. And that's what drives the climate. That's the energy that drives everything. The other major thing that varies that, besides the actual energy output of the sun, is volcanism. Now, right now we're in a period of the highest measured output of volcanic matter in history since they've been measuring it. Not in total history, I'm sure it was higher at points in the past, but since they've been measuring the particulate matter, we're at the highest point. There's been a lot of volcanism in Alaska, Iceland, and specifically below the equator around the Ring of Fire in Indonesia. They've been just throwing out tons and tons and megatons of ash. So that reflects the sun's solar energy. But I need you to look up several things here. I'll mention them throughout while I'm shooting this. The first thing you need to look up is the Maunder median. That was a period of low solar output that caused like a mini ice age. The sun goes through an 11-year cycle, and right now we're in a low cycle. Now, somewhere around this video on my website, timbosplace.com, you're going to see the Great Lakes surface temperature website. And for the last 5 years, it's been getting colder. The Great Lakes have been totally freezing over. Last year, you couldn't even swim in Lake Michigan until August comfortably. 3 weeks ago, you could, or they had to get a icebreaker on Lake Superior to free up a ship that had gotten, the wind had blown the floating ice and trapped this ship, and they had to get it out. Now, just 2 weeks ago, Obama was pushing his climate change agenda. All it is a tax grab, carbon credits and a tax grab. But you know, he's saying, you know, we're all going to die if we don't start addressing climate, global warming. They call it climate change now. Well, the climate changes all the time, but they've kind of been discredited on the global warming. Now they're saying they're just calling it climate change. This is the second week in May, and last weekend you still could have skied at Sugarloaf up in the Northeast. Denver just got snow on Mother's Day, and we've had 2 mild winters here in San Antonio. Excuse me, two mild summers in San Antonio. The the data is far from over on the climate controversy. Company, whatever the hell Al Gore says. A little side note: me and Al Gore, when he, Al Gore and I, when they released his school records and his tax returns when he ran for president, I looked at them, and he took one course that I took, and it's the one that he mentions that's relevant to this what I'm talking about. If you saw his movie Inconvenient Truth, he talks about how this professor, he took this class, and this professor, and really what he took away from there is the earth takes, one breath a year. And I took that same class, different professor, different school, but the same basic course. He got a C in it, I got an A+. Just throwing that out there. And his carbon footprint is probably 10,000 times higher than me. He's on a jet, 200 days out of the year. He's got 5 cars. His footprint, well, maybe it's not 10, maybe it's 800 times bigger than mine. But anyway, all these elitists, they talk something one way and then they go the other. Ted Turner talks about how nobody should have children, yet he's got 6. So it's all well and good for what they do, but everybody else, has to kowtow to them. And it's a scam about money, and that's really all it is. It's a way to get more money out of people and scare them. Remember, they run everything through fear and deception, people that run the world. Anyway, back to this. So the sun goes through an 11-year cycle, and we've got about 5 years left on this cycle, and it's been a slow one. The solar output is acknowledged at being the lowest in about a century. And, after this cycle's over, it'll probably warm up a little bit. And they'll bring out the charts and say, look, we're all going to die. Now, remember about 10 years ago, there was a lot of hurricanes. Ending basically with Hurricane Ike in 2006 or 7. 2008 was pretty much the last heavy hurricane year, and they were saying, Al Gore was out there, we're having all these increased hurricanes and it's because of global warming and we're all going to die. Well, there hasn't been a major hurricane landfall in the US in a while, several years. We're in 2015. I believe the last landfall was in 2010, and we're not going to talk about supposed winter hurricane Sandy, because that wasn't a hurricane. They called it one, but it wasn't. It was a winter storm. And I don't know how you can get a freezing storm and turn it in, caused by global warming, but whatever. So they press all these numbers and they say it's the hottest year on record. Well, no, 1935 was the hottest year on record. You can make numbers say whatever you want to. Yes, California is starting a historic drought, but if you look at tree rings, the science of dendrochronology, California goes through about a 500-year drought wet cycle. If you look at tree rings, it's called dendrochronology. I need you to look that up. There's a couple other names I need you to look up. Milutin Milankovitch. He confirmed the Chandler wobble, which is perturbations in the Earth's angle and around the sun, and a Milutin cycle that was named after him. There was a set of famous scientists, father and son, named Alvarez, and he was the one that coined the Ice Age. And he said it was through the Chandler wobble and the extended, remember the sun goes around, the earth goes around the center of gravity of the solar system, which is usually usually in the sun, but sometimes it's just outside the sun. And as it rotates around there, it goes in an ellipse. Well, sometimes that ellipse flattens out. And Alvarez figured out that that was what caused the Ice Age. The ice advances because of longer winters and milder summers, and those are caused by the relationship of the Earth to the Sun, or lower solar output from the sun. So you need to look up those things. So the Chandler Wobble, Milutin Milankovitch, Alvarez, the Maunder median, this solar cycle, and just watch. This summer is going to be mild here. At our aquifer level right now is about 12 feet below historic levels, but it's been picking up really fast from 2 years ago. And we have, Texas has gone through a population explosion in the last 10 years, and the aquifer's catching up. So we've got 3 times as many people pulling out of the aquifers as back in the 50s, and yet it's still regenerating. Let's talk about this baseball field. So, you know, I was using that for the sun and the relative size of the earth. Let's talk about the baseball field itself. Now, the man that pushed CO2 as a greenhouse gas has since recanted. He said more studies need to be done. CO2 is required for plants to live. If the CO2 level falls below a certain point, then all the plants die, and then we die soon after. So the whole, let's reduce the Earth's atmosphere to the surface of this baseball diamond here. So the majority of the atmosphere is nitrogen. So we'll take the entire outfield all the way to the baseline, first, third, second, and we'll bring it in, and we'll also throw in one of the dugouts. That's going to be nitrogen. Oxygen's going to be the infield, less the 2 batters boxes, and the other dugout. Argon, which is about 1%, would be the baseline here with about a 3-inch wide or 3-inch wide passed on each side of the baseline, all the way around, plus the bases. The trace gases would be the batter's box, both batter's boxes, and the area around home plate. CO2 would be the pitcher's mound. If you wanted to reduce it to football terms, CO2 would be the last 3 inches of a 100-yard football field. So that's what we're talking about here. And like I said, without plants, or without CO2, there are no plants. So don't be scared. If you're really worried about an environmental, problem, worry about Fukushima. Fukushima is going to kill you way longer before global warming through climate change will. That's the planet killer. Don't worry about climate change, because climate does change. The science of dendrochronology, you really need to look at it, especially as it has to do with California. California can't manage anything correctly. Just today they came out that the state sprinklers on the side of the road were shooting water out during this supposed mega drought, and actually they were shooting out water while it was raining. So the incompetency of liberals is staggering. I'm not saying conservatives, are that much better, but the liberals are just idiots. The Great Lakes surface temperature, like I said, will be right around this video on my website. I was laughing. My science officer, Mr. Spock, was jumping up on me here. Say hi, Mr. Spock. There, he's a good boy. And there's Batman out there. So anyway, look into the solar cycles, look into dendrochronology, look into the meander median. Another thing about their Impressionist artist back, a little over a century ago, would paint these real vivid sunsets, and that's part of the reason they got the Impressionist logo. They were actually, it was probably what the actual sunsets look like. Remember, there was the Tombora explosion and the Krakatoa explosion that threw up a whole lot of volcanic ash. And yes, it stays mainly in the southern hemisphere, but it does eventually go to the north, and it causes real vivid sunsets. So that's an explanation for some of the real vivid impressionist sunsets in paintings. I'd like to thank you for your consideration, and remember, I'm not really trying to downplay, make you feel like an idiot, except for the people that are actually fostering this. I remember the very first Earth Day, they were worried. I was in school. I was in Mrs. Dysart's class at Glen Oaks Elementary, and we talked about how the Earth was going to freeze. And sometime in the late 80s, it turned into, Earth Day was worried about chlorofluorocarbons. And then sometime around 1990, I guess, it turned into global warming. Specifically Al Gore pressing it, I guess. Oh, by the way, James Lovelock, the man that started the Gaia hypothesis, he's recanted. He's about 95. He's not senile. He just, he's seen what has happened and what hasn't happened. Anyway, check out James Lovelock and the Gaia hypothesis, and remember, he is recanted from it. Like I said, check out the Chandler Wobble, Milankovitch, the Milankovitch cycles. But that's what causes the climate. It isn't what we do. Yes, there are heat spots around, there are heat islands around cities, and when you cover stuff up with concrete, it causes heat locally. But on the global scale, it doesn't do much. So, and with the Baltic Dry Index at its lowest level the last 3 years since the downturn in 2008, and then we're going to have another downturn here in 2015, you're not going to have to worry about increased output, because it's just, we're not producing like we used to. Anyway, thank you for your consideration. And again, I got to thank Batman here for providing security so Al Gore didn't send his minions to come get me. And my science officer, Mr. Spock, there providing technical support. And just remember the baseball diamond and the coin, and you do your own experiment to show you that, a change in the solar output of the sun is big here, because if we only receive 1,000th of 1% of the sun's total energy, a change in that is big on the Earth. Yes, the atmosphere mulls it out and spreads it around, but it's still energy in and energy out. I made a whole lot of money last year doing consulting for people that couldn't get their stuff to work because they had adjusted the instruments upward for global warming, and it messed everything up because they bought into the lie. And it actually worked out good for me. I made an extra, $5,000 last year because of it. Anyway, thank you for your consideration, and remember to check out timbosplace.com. Goodbye.